Good evening. I'm Dr. Imani Ma'at, and I'm here with my co-host.
Bernard Kynes.
And we're so excited about launching our podcast, Progressively Yours Health and Wellness Podcast. We've been planning this for a long time, and it's just so nice to be able to roll it out. We've got lots of good information and fun information to share with you. And we hope that you can settle in, get some tea, some juice, relax, and just enjoy. This is a no stress session and hopefully very informative as well. We wanted to start by introducing ourselves. Bernard, why don't you start?
Well, thank you, Dr. Imani, for welcoming everyone to our new podcast. And I'd like to join with you and those who are with us and who will be with us going forward. We're so excited for the opportunity to be with you and you with us as we have a vision to expand health and wellness ideas and thoughts and visions for our community. I am J. Bernard Kynes. I am in private practice here in Atlanta, Georgia, as a licensed marriage and family psychotherapist. Been in practice since 1992 and enjoy immensely being able to provide a space and place for individuals, couples, families, and groups in the space that's behind me to come and share of themselves. Is been an interesting journey for me and continues to be each and every day. I look forward to sharing from my experience with those who share with me, with you, the audience.
Wonderful. And I'm Dr. Imani Ma'at, and I am a public health scientist. I retired from the CDC, Centers for Disease Control, about 12 years ago. But I've also done my best to blend the creative arts and sciences with public health. So some years ago, I co-created a teen theater program called Yes for Health, where we taught young people to share information about health and wellness. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But I really enjoy what I do. I'm a writer, I'm an author, I'm a mother of one and a grandmother of four. And this is a great opportunity to share what we do. And together, our organization is called Sankofa Institute for Wellness. And all of our programs, products, services can be found at the totalwellnessconsulting.com website. So it's a nice blend of what Bernard does and what I do, and we have a lot of fun doing it together. We've actually started doing some consulting where we combine his techniques and strategies with mine using the healthy haiku, and some of the other things that we've shared with groups and individuals. And it's so far so good.
So far, so good. Yes.
Absolutely. And we're totally dedicated to part of our mantra is that we're dedicated to facilitating community wellness. And so we're concerned about the individual, but we're also concerned about the community, however people define community, whether it's a job site, not-for-profit organization, a community of people who live together, or however people define community. But we're totally dedicated to supporting them and their needs and helping them to define what it means to be well and what it means to get to the next level for them, because we're all in different places.
And that is especially important in the day and time in which we're living, because there's so much stress that's just bombarding communities throughout the country. And so what we can do in our metropolitan area and throughout the country, we are for that. That is part of the vision when we use the word and think of the word community in focus.
Mhm. And it's I would venture to say that it's national and international. Both of us love to travel. Bernard is getting ready to go on yet a second trip to Ghana in the very near future. And there's so much that we learn and exchange with people globally around what their health and wellness needs and how they define health and wellness. Sometimes we have assumptions. Go ahead,
Well,
Bernard.
I was going to say, since I am going back to Ghana in a few weeks, the name Sankofa was inspired on my first trip to Ghana in 2019 on the year of the return. Part of the story briefly was I was going to the ancestral river and was nearly hit in the head by a coconut hull. And I went down to the river and had this incredible spiritual experience with the ancestors and went into the gift shop. And that was a necklace that I saw, and it was the Sankofa symbol with the bird that's turned around, as you can see on the screen. She's turning around, retrieving what is left behind while moving forward at the same time. And so part of our coming together and envisioning our ministry as the Sankofa Institute for Wellness is we want to retrieve what is good that we left behind, that our ancestors have laid for us as we continue to move forward simultaneously. So that's where the term Sankofa and the name Sankofa came for our show and podcast. I mean, for our organization.
Mm-hmm. So, that's actually a good segue because Sankofa means kind of to look back and see where you've been in order to get a perspective on where you are and where you're going. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your history, Bernard, and what brought you to this place of wanting to facilitate and share information about health and wellness to the community, with the community?
Well, thank you for that. I had this couple of stories. When I was age 4, Mom was taking me to the daycare center. It's my first time consciously being separated from her, and I had what we would call in my field separation anxiety. And I cried and I cried and I cried, and I was holding on to her apron. I remember I didn't want to be left behind. And I was crying so hard that Miss Van Hine, she knelt down and with such compassion looked into my eyes and said to me with confidence, "You're going to be okay. Just come on in and play with the other children. It's going to be all right." And she opened the door, and 2 of my best friends to this very day, James Hall and Don Cross, who's deceased, were standing there to greet me. And that made an impression upon me. And I remember that story because it was such an emotional impact. That's one story. And the compassion, as I just said, that she expressed toward me. The second story came when my father died when I was 11. He was the only and primary male role model that I had in my life. And so shortly thereafter, I joined the Boy Scout troops, and the Boy Scout troop provided another nurturing support for me in my development and provided the opportunities that I need to learn and grow as a young Black male in South rural Georgia. The next movement came when at age 23, I entered the ministry. So I've always had this kind of longing to help people. But before I went to the ministry, I went to the Army. And when I returned to my hometown, I didn't realize that I had changed and I had grown, and I wanted the people to do more to help themselves, and became very angry about that. And eventually I felt inspired to enter into the ministry. And so at age 23, I entered the ministry as a way to begin to give back. And that has been my path from this point forward. I was a chaplain in the military, Then I did further training, for example, like at Grady Hospital, and I learned how to be with people at Grady. And so the opportunity to give back has just been a part of my life from people who given to me when I was growing up in my early childhood. My next door neighbor who lives with me in my heart, my Welchel, right now. So that's a great part of the foundation that inspires me now to want to give back to the community because the community gave to me to make me who I am.
Mhm. Beautiful stories. Thank you for sharing those. When I think back, I think of several places that I found myself. When I first came out of school, my first job was working in a substance abuse and recovery program, which in New York City, which made me real concerned about, the drug and substance using populations. Soon after that the HIV/AIDS epidemic hit, and I was invited to run a street outreach program, an HIV prevention street outreach program in Queens, New York. Woohoo, Queens! And all of my staff were people in recovery, and I learned so much about the community and pulling together, and not just creating that street outreach program, but all of the linkages that the people that my staff were coming in contact needed. They needed referrals for housing and for medical care and for jobs, so many things. So we became a full service sort of provider and linkage to other things happening in the community. So that was, at the local level. Then I left New York and I went to Atlanta and I worked at the Centers for Disease Control. And community became the whole country with lots of communities that we were providing support to, as well as international communities. I was able to work on several projects that had me in Africa and the Caribbean and South America. Wonderful, wonderful experiences, wonderful people that I met, just with really big hearts who were doing their best to give back. And I also mentioned that during that time, I started a teen theater program with a colleague of mine, Gary Ogden, Sr. And that was a way to train peer educators, young people, to work on health issues. And it had several purposes. One was to train them and provide factual information so that they knew the truth about HIV, STDs, diabetes. We did a number of real creative programs and performances that were life-changing for them and for the audiences that they presented to. And from there, I created the Healthy Haiku program that I took to places like the DeKalb County Jail and worked with incarcerated population there. And I have a book coming out, my fourth book, that's filled with poetry and experiences of growth and change with the populations that we worked with. My staff there were all people who were, I kind of joke about it because I say all of my staff were people who were focused on kind of liberation theology and really about liberating the mind, and we're working, with officers who into lock them up theology. So they didn't all get what we were doing there, but some of them did. And some of them are still friends to this day because they said one officer actually joined my teaching staff because he liked what we were doing so much. And he's getting ready to retire. So he became controversial because they didn't understand why he joined our group. But I've enjoyed working at both the local and global level, and I love learning about health and wellness and teaching about health and wellness. There are so many things that we take for granted that we do on a regular basis, whether it's fasting on Mondays and now Mondays and Tuesdays, or drinking enough water, and not all waters are the same. There are so many things that we do that we want to share. And so the guests that we have on the show will be people who can also help to expand the knowledge of our audience about alternatives, about things that they can do to promote to promote their own health and wellness and the health and wellness of their families and communities. Bernard, what do you say?
Well, I think that when you were going down a list of things that people can do to help themselves, one of the other thoughts that came to mind was in getting enough rest and exercise, two essential components to health and wellness that we would talk about and share ideas and possibilities for enhancing their lives. So I want to ask you to what do you hope that the people will gain from the work that we will provide with the Sankofa Institute and the podcast?
Well, for me, it's all about options and alternatives. A lot of people just, my doctor says do this, my doctor says do that. And I want them to understand doctors are great. I've got lots of friends because of the work I've done at CDC and elsewhere. I've got lots of MD friends, so I wouldn't talk bad about them. But I also want them to know that there are natural alternatives for healing. So we're going to talk about quantum energy and sound vibrations, what it means to be an epigenetic wellness coach, which is one of the things that I'm training in right now. Every part of our body has a reciprocal part. So we learned that if you've got pain in your left ankle, your right wrist can be used to help reduce the pain and discomfort in that left ankle. If you have pain in your right knee, you can do certain tapping on your left elbow. So it's really interesting. And we've been working at a gospel festival here in Atlanta this week, and just watching. We're working with a naturopathic doctor, Dr. Michael Vincent, who is just absolutely brilliant. And I saw him work with a woman in a wheelchair yesterday who's been in a wheelchair for like 50 years. And in speaking with her, and I know this is one of the things we talked about, epigenetics looks at not just what's happening with you, but what has happened with you emotionally and what's happened to your ancestors, say 8 generations, some people say 9 generations back. And so in having discussions with this woman in the wheelchair about her life and what was going on and doing some of the tapping that I spoke about, this woman stood up at the end of like a 5-minute session with her. And she was, it was a gospel festival, so she was like ready to shout and dance, but she was amazed. So I really like to share alternatives for healing and wellness and mindset, things that, like I said, we may be sort of taking some of these things for granted, but there's so much that people can do to initiate and to facilitate their own health and healing. So that's my goal is sharing options and people and programs that can expand the funnel, that, the lens that we're looking out of, so that we're not stuck. It's not a good place to be stuck, and to know, it's good to know that there are lots of options out there for facilitating optimal health and wellness.
Thank you. If I were to respond to the same question, my hope is for providing opportunities with some of the guests that we're going to have to focus on also relationship health and wellness and healing. Our relationships are suffering because of so much stress in relationships today, conversations, and I'm looking forward to the opportunity of talking about, teaching about listening skills, active listening, active communicating, so that our relationships can experience an enhancement, so that people can grow within the context and helping each other to grow and heal emotionally, spiritually. You've talked about in the past that Dr. Vincent mentions that 83, 87% that make up our illnesses sometimes are related to emotions. Emotions that make up 87% of who we are. And that also has to do with how the brain is operated and structured. Our brain is a very key element. And so brain health, neuroscience is sharing with us in a lot of literature today that maintaining a body's budget, that is to say, the brain works to keep our internal self in balance, and organs, and so keep our organs organized, and it works overtime to help to maintain our health, which is why rest is important, exercise is important. And so in our relationships, we can help inspire others, to support others, encourage others holistically, however their relationships may be aligned. That is what I hope for as well.
That's good. And I know that well, both of us take different supplements and things to enhance, like you were mentioning Dr. Vincent. He says that, you know, the emotions account for like 87% of our health status, and 13% is our diet and supplements and nutrition and everything else. So are there any supplements that you think are especially helpful to our audience?
Yeah, I've been doing supplements off and on for a long time, particularly when I had heart disease back in 2003, 2004, because my blood pressure was up undetected. Mm-hmm. And it scared me. And I realized I was nearly 300 pounds at that time. So my cardiologist informed me that if I had waited another year before discovering that my pressure was up, I would have had serious problems for the remainder of my life. So I got on this journey to improve my health by exercising more. And so I started taking various supplements. So I've experienced with a variety of supplements, and I found one now. It's Isagenix, and we're going to take a preview of what Isagenix has to offer. Very good. Yes, and some of the products that I do take from Isagenix, one I have here is called the Cleanse for Life. And so when I fast on Mondays, Tuesday, I do Cleanse for Life, and it is a detox of the cells. And so you drink the Cleanse for Life, 4 ounces every 4 hours, and a lot of water, so that the toxins from the cells are cleansed through urine. It's not a colon cleanse. I especially take their product called Isagenix, which is a supplement to support the telomeres. Telomeres are parts of our DNA, and they communicate to the cells, and they expand and tell how long we're going to live and how life is going to take place. So I do the Isagenix, and it's very helpful. I've been working with these supplements, taking them since last November, and I noticed a great difference, and as well as the collagen. I want to say one other thing about the Isagenix product for the telomeres. African American men have the shortest telomeres, which means telomeres are shortened as it relates to chronic stress. And chronic stress shortens the telomeres, therefore our lifespan is shorter. Black men have the shortest, has been documented in her book, How Human Emotions Are Made. Lisa Barrett talks about this. And so when I learned that Isagenesis had probably the best product that support telomere health, I was on board. And so telomeres need support. Supplements can help given the way that our food is produced today. So anything that's going to help my body help itself to stay in a good balance and have what she refers to as a balanced budget, I'm all for. And Isogen is just but one of the companies that, and primary company that, I get my supplements from.
Very good, and I like those products, and we'll have an opportunity to share a number of products and devices that we use to promote health at the cellular level. So thank you for that, Bernard. That was good. Bernard's very humble. He wakes up at 4:15, 4:30 some mornings and goes to swim for like 2 miles and does yoga and rides a Peloton bicycle, and he's just going. So he's my role model for actually walking the walk. A lot of us talk it, but he walks the walk and is very consistent in his regimen. So I hats off to you, my brother. You're good. You're good. And I think what I would like to do, we have some guests waiting in the background, and we were thinking that we were going to introduce them a little bit later. But I'm so excited. Our show is about what we do and what we share, but we're also going to each week have a guest that we give most of the hour to in terms of learning about their contributions to community, whether it's education, wellness, the arts, a combination of all of that, like I do. It's truly a pleasure. I want to introduce our first guest in the wings, who has agreed to come on this evening with us and share a little bit of time and plant some seeds about what she's going to talk about when she has a whole hour to be with us. I know she got a little nervous about that, and she can fill up the hour because she does so much and is such a humble spirit. So I'm going to introduce to you Miss Anicia Johnson. She's the founder and community educator with Ama Culture, which provides education, science, and arts, and it's an African-inspired resource for educators and outreach to families and to youth. She's a mother of 3. She's a grandmother of 6. She believes that what African-American children and adults learn in school about their heritage is just not enough. It falls far short of what our contributions have been throughout history. So her goal is to close the educational gap and to inspire and encourage fun and enjoyment along the way. And I think that's one thing that drew me to her, because I'm like, she sounds like me in terms of making it fun. Anybody can teach, but to teach and draw in with the arts and culture and so forth is just an amazing gift. So I'd like to introduce Miss Anicia Johnson.
Hello.
Welcome. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see everybody. Thank you very much for inviting me.
You are so welcome. We're excited about the little tease that you might provide. Tell us a little bit about your organization, how many years you've been doing it, and what you do, where you are, because we're here on the East Coast. We know you're on the West Coast in California. So just tell us a little bit about what you do with your organization and how you were inspired to serve the community.
Sure. I am the founder of Ama Culture, Education, Sciences, and Arts in Northern California. I have established Ama Culture in 2017 as a resource for educators and outreach to youth and families. Our objective is to instill pride in, as well as respect for, the African diaspora and its contributions to world civilizations. In fact, its foundational role to all world civilizations, and including Black American history and heritage. So I was inspired through my own life experiences. Growing up here, I grew up in Chico, California, which is the home of California State University, Chico. And in fact, my younger siblings and I all attended preschool through university in our hometown with degrees.
Wow.
It didn't occur to me until much later in life. I'm now a grandmother, and I'm realizing that much of what's being taught is still very antiquated, and it's not correct history pertaining to our great contributions. So seeing myself and others see me as a fairly well-educated woman, I realized that there was so much that I had not learned, even having a degree. And I've heard others like Anthony Browder, the great Anthony Browder, talk about, he graduated in, I think it was engineering, and he realized after receiving his degree and achievements, he had not been taught about his great African heritage. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing some volunteer work locally in the schools, and again, it's being driven home to me that there's so much that we can do to supplement what students are learning. Interestingly, in the town that I grew up in, Black folks have traditionally been less than 2% of the population. However, I wasn't aware of that for most of my life because we grew up in an area of town where most of the Black folks, they were elders to me growing up, but they're much younger. They were much younger than I am now, I realize. They had migrated from the rural South. And so people pulled together, and there was a lot of community, I would say, camaraderie and support and caring. And it wasn't until I left my neighborhood school to go to junior high and high school that I was more exposed to the dominant society. And fortunately, I grew up in a 2-parent working class home, and relatively strict. And so we, in our family, we children were expected to excel in school. And we did. And, no getting into trouble or anything like that. But I realized not everybody has had that opportunity. Mm-hmm. And so because I've always appreciated education, I love to learn, it's got me on this course of creating something that will assure that all students of all ethnic groups understand the importance that Black folks have played, not only in this country, but in the world. So I started, I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry. I wanted to ask you what you think. Is there a connection between our understanding of who we are and our general health and wellness? What's the connection there for you?
Well, I think so. I think having a positive view of oneself is very critical in our outlook to our abilities to contribute in the world and our sense of well-being.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, well, we look so forward. I told you could fill up an hour very easily. So we look forward to having you back and learning more, about your work in California with the community, with the children. I always see you on Facebook with children all around you. So they must love you and appreciate all that you're doing for them.
Well, thank you. I honestly feel like it's the spirit of these children that are calling in this more correct history, and they are very excited to learn the things that are not being introduced to them in schools necessarily.
Right,
So,
right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, and we're going to get you on the schedule soon. We're going to pick a Tuesday evening, and you'll have the floor, and it'll be fun. And if you want to bring some youth with you, well, that may get into a whole thing of needing permissions, but we can make it fun. You can show videos. You can really share the work that you're doing. Make it as colorful as you like. Okay.
thank you.
Thank you for joining us. And next, we have waiting in the wings, Dr. Gregory Ellison, and I'm going to give the floor to Bernard to introduce him. He's a colleague for many years, I understand.
Yes. Hey, thank you, Dr. Imani. Gregory, Dr. Ellison, my friend and brother, welcome. I want to say to those of you who are watching a few things about Dr. Ellison. Dr. Ellison is a professor, associate professor at the Emory University here in Atlanta, Georgia, Candler School of Theology of Pastoral Care. He's the author of several books. One I have in my office, the other is at home. It's Cut Dead, but Still Alive. I think this was caring for African American young men. It's also written, I think it's more, the Fear Hyphenated Less Dialogue, a new movement for justice. Dr. Ellison is the founder of Fearless Dialogue, which is a global ministry where he travels the globe literally to the day to minister and help organizations, religious organizations, nonprofit organizations, for-profit organizations such as the NBA is on his resume of helping these organizations find ways to have hard conversation. He spoke for my organization, the ACPE, which I'm the convener, a few years ago on the topic of Howard Thurman, who is one of our mentors and ancestors. And Dr. Ellison is proud husband and father of two, a son and daughter. He is just an outstanding spokesman for our people wherever he travels. And so he has graciously invited me to his class on numerous occasions, set me up to speak to his pastoral care group, and I've enjoyed that. So Dr. Ellison, to those who are waiting to hear from you, share with us more about who you are and what you offer as it relates to health and wellness.
Well, Dr. Imani, it's good to meet you virtually.
And thank you. Likewise.
It has been over a decade since I have called Bernard Kynes. I affectionately refer to him as Brother Rabbi.
You're the one that calls him Brother Rabbi. I've heard that name. Okay.
Yes, ma'am. He has been my teacher. I also call him, and when he comes to my class, he used to wear these Asian looking shirts. I said, these are fortune cookies from a black man's mouth. So, nice. I am so grateful for you all for convening this space for us to look back and get things that may have been forgotten such that we might move forward with greater hope. As Dr. Imani and Brother Kynes have said, I am a professor at Emory University. I founded an organization called Fearless Dialogues. And what we do is we create these really unique spaces for unlikely partners, folks who don't normally talk, to have heartfelt conversations about taboo subject, whether that's racism, homophobia, classism. We've seen it all. And we started back in 2013. Since then, we've worked with nearly 60,000 leaders. globally, and we'll be in Brazil very shortly. And so I'm so grateful for this opportunity to share with you all. I just want to lift up one thing. Brother Rabbi is among my Yodas. I wore my Yoda hat today. The wise elders in my life. And I am so excited about the wisdom that the two of you will offer to those who will come through this way. And so I want to share just two very brief formative quotes from elders that have walked with me, knowing that you all will call the ancestors forth. One was this old lady in South Georgia. I was sitting on the back pew. My friends were, and I was in college, they were doing a concert, and this old woman just started staring at me. I was like, this is so weird. Why is this lady staring at me? Then she leaned over and she said, baby, if you don't want to get old, die young. And I was like, what is going on? And then she started staring at me again, and she leaned over and said something that I never forgot, Dr. Imani. She said, son, the longest journey you will take in life is the trip from your head to your heart.
Mm.
And little did I know that I would connect with Howard Thurman years later in his autobiography, With Head and Heart. And for those of you who are unaware, Howard Thurman was Martin Luther King's teacher. And so I'd like to close with just a quote from Dr. Thurman, because what you all are doing is altering the pace of so many who will be caught in the frenzy. This is a small quote from a longer piece that Thurman writes called How Good It Is to Center Down. Mm-hmm. Thurman says this: how good it is to center down, to sit quietly and see oneself pass by. The streets of our minds seethe with endless traffic. Our spirits resound with clashings, with noisy silences, while something deep within hungers and thirsts for the still moment and the resting lull. And as we listen, floating up through all the jangling echoes of our turbulence, there is a sound of another kind, mm-hmm. a deeper note. Which only the stillness of the heart makes clear. I give thanks that you all are inviting us to become more still and to center down. I look forward to continue conversations. May you all have peace for your journey from head to heart.
Amen.
Thank you so much. That was very nice. I look forward to hearing more from you in the near future. We've got to set up a date for you to come back.
Look forward to it.
Yes, you will be coming back in as you prepare for Brazil. Be well, be safe, and continue to do the outstanding work that you are doing, my brother. And it's interesting that you would quote that.
Yeah.
Because, I had it at home, and I was looking through my box yesterday, and I pulled it out.
Yes.
Wow. Same quote.
Same quote.
That's nice. Have you memorized it? Because I think he memorized it. So
yeah, well, not gonna lie, I read it, Dr. Imani. But I can pull some lines though.
I'm sure you can.
I'm a Baptist preacher too. I can pull some lines.
Okay. Yeah. It looked like you were acting it out, so we appreciate that and appreciate your honesty too.
Good to meet you.
All right, likewise.
Thank you, Gregor. Be well.
For joining us, and we have one more guest in the wings. He goes by the Sun Food Warrior, Mr. Mark Blake. Mark is a father, but he's also a living example of change, growth, intimacy, and transformation. Those are his words, and I'm excited about him being able to explain how he defines himself. He's an active, and I like the word active, raw vegan, because there are a lot of us who are mostly raw vegans or mostly vegetarians. But I like that I met Mark in a live and raw food restaurant, gosh, probably about maybe 15 years ago. It was some time ago. And he's been very consistent since him and Adama in Atlanta. If you know Adama and you know Mark Blake, you know that they're like two of the most consistent people in terms of talking the talk and walking the walk. So we appreciate him so much. He is an active raw vegan. He's a nutritional consultant. He does these fasting weeks or a couple of weeks, 3 weeks. I've done some with them. I do a Monday fast, and now it's Monday, Tuesday fast. But I always look up to him because he does it the right way and he coaches people through it. He's a DJ, so a lot of times Friday evenings, I Facebook pops up. It's like Mark the Snake is on live with music. It's like old school fun dancing music. So I'm like dancing around the house, because that's another side of him. He loves to travel. Every time I look up, Mark is like in another country, in some place that I got to put on my list to be. He's a graduate of the Ann Wigmore Hippocrates Institute and the Gary Null Anti-Aging Program. And so with that, we will bring on our Sun Food warrior, Mark Blake. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're most welcome, and the gracious introduction. Hopefully you could hear me well. And I'm just traveling. Yeah, I'm just traveling down from New York and switching out rental cars. I just got on in time, and that's okay. I just said it would be okay. And I'm enjoying the show. I'm enjoying what you're talking about. And briefly, I guess to put it in the shortest term, I consider myself a facilitator or assistant. So I'm not healing or doing anything. I'm assisting people and directing them back to their own personal healing, which is within them, and giving them a different understanding of the body physiology and how it's actually designed different to what we're taught, even in the holistic field, and how to become in harmony with that, how the body physiology is, and to look at diseases or symptoms as not an inevitable thing, but momentary conversation that our body and spirit is having with us on how we're caring for us, and what adjustments we may want to do. I do a 30-day fasting group about 3 or 4 times a year. They're all plant-based, and sometimes they're vegan, raw vegan, but lately I've been focusing on the fruit fast because I want to get people in a habit of eating and continuing to eat and not have a big when I did the vegan, I found that people spent a lot of time focusing on meals and meal plans. In the fruit, it's easy to satiate and learn the powers of that. Or and also do other modalities, yoga and meditation, and yes, DJing and therapeutic, either energetic or peaceful music, whatever the call may be. So I've created a way to enter in healing the holistic without having a capitalist approach and having a community approach, which I think has been our biggest hindrance in the healing arts, is our approach has been as capitalists. And that doesn't become, as capitalists, the gist of it is might is right, or more is better. And community, although more painstaking, takes on the concept that all matters. And how do we come up with a solution that's all inclusive? So bringing that approach, and also sharing my travels to different countries and what I've discovered about people, and also narratives. Even though even as we were talking earlier, the narrative we have as African American men, and that's a generalized narrative that we take on as who we are, when in essence it's African American men, if they don't take care of their bodies, tend to show up in these kind of diseases.
Right.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's quite different than as African American men.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Mark,
Um,
yeah, and I don't want to cut you off because I know you can go too. And that's one of the reasons
yeah,
I wanted you on. I was like, we won't have any dead space on the show.
yeah.
We have so much to share. When we look forward to having you back. I wanted to see if we had anyone in the audience who had a question. We have Toya Glenn, who's helping with the production, doing such an amazing job.
Outstanding job.
Outstanding. I mean, the opening credits were just amazing, and I think the end one is good as well. So Toya, I'm not sure how we do this. If we have any questions, do they roll across the screen as a kind of ticker across the screen? No questions so far. Okay, well that works. We are just real excited about being able to roll out this show. We are open to suggestions for guests who fit into our theme in terms of wanting to educate and work with the community. Again, primarily wellness, but wellness is defined. It's such a broad definition. You know, violence is included in wellness. You know, what happens in a community where there's so many people who look like each other who are killing each other. It's like, what is that all about? And what's the mental state that goes along with that? And speaking of which, and I know we don't have a whole lot of time, that might be a good segue just to share some of my last job was working with the sheriff of the DeKalb County Sheriff and running all the educational programs at the jail. And such an amazing program, amazing staff that we had who are really trying to, as I indicated earlier, teach a liberation theology about changing their mindsets. You know, imagine teaching people, men and women in lockup, about live and raw food, Mark. I mean, that's, you know, I had them like salivating for a kale salad and water and, you know, and all of that. So, you know, they'd see me in the hall and it was just always with respect and gratitude for what was shared. So I want to just share a little bit of what I do. And these are actually some poems, there's two that were written by two of my students. One is called Doing Time. And there's a lot of symbolism in this and in the other one. So this is called Doing Time. Doing time is like flying a kite. It's waiting on letters that nobody writes. It's waiting on pictures that nobody sends from people out there you thought were your friends. It's funny how time goes slow with prayers that are answered and the answer is no. But I keep my pride with my head held high, and I'll keep my pride till the day I die. And soon, once again, I'll be free. So think twice, my friends, when you're needy like me. And that was one of my students named Kevin. And I want to share one more young sister who is just absolutely a brilliant poet and writer and contributor to the classes. And this one is called The Light. I've been searching for the light, but there's too much smoke in between. I've been searching for the light. It seems so far-fetched, maybe too extreme. I'm searching for the light, which seems beyond my fingertips. Still searching for the light. I still can't seem to see. Searching for the light, which has always been within me. And I don't have the young sister's name. I don't have it on here, but a beautiful poet. I've met so many talented people in lockup. And so that continues to be part of my ministry, if you will, in terms of sharing and sharing the kind of programs that we did there with other centers of incarceration so that we can continue the job of liberating minds through teaching about love, about loving themselves, about forgiving themselves and forgiving other people. So there's lots, and I'm sure that we'll have some people speaking on the show who were part of that particular program at DeKalb County. And so the little note about my book that's coming out soon. Hopefully it'll be released by December. And so, again, we want to thank Mark for coming on. We want to thank all of our guests, Dr. Ellison, Ms. Alicia Johnson. Thank you all for coming on and joining us on this premiere episode of our podcast, Progressively Yours Health and Wellness Podcast. Look for all of our programs and services on totalwellnessconsulting.com. And we look forward to seeing you same place, same time next Tuesday. Please join our Facebook group. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we're also on LinkedIn. So we'll see you one way or another. Tell your friends about us and encourage people to contact us if they'd like to speak on the show as well. Bernard, any parting words?
Well, I think you covered all of the areas that are important. We are so grateful for those of you who have joined us tonight to begin this important journey. We are committing this show to you, and as you join us to help us, we want to help the community at large. So with gratitude and graciousness, we are humbled that you have joined us, and I say farewell tonight and look forward to seeing you next week. Ashe.
Ashe. One more thing before we totally close out. I just wanted to give thanks to Toya Glenn from Go Giga Creations. Her and her colleague Mikeia have done the run of the show for us and put all of the visuals together, and we're truly grateful to you, Toya, and to Mikeia, and thank you. And we look forward to working with you on future shows as well. Thank you.